Good evening, members, friends, and guests. Welcome to the Battle of Homestead Foundation's 2023 annual meeting. I'm John Haer, president of the board. Tonight, we'll look back on a topsy-turvy year of challenge and hope, 2022. And we're super honored to hear from one of American Labor's top officers, former steelworker and United Steelworkers VP for Human Affairs and now National AFL-CIO Secretary Treasurer Frederick Redmond. Brother Redmond will discuss the role of labor history in the making of what we hope will be, as he calls it, a mighty force for change. We've put Brother Redmond first on the agenda. It'll be followed by a brief question and answer period. Nathan mentioned that your questions to Brother Redmond and or other comments are encouraged on the chat. They will be taken down and recorded and given to the moderator of the discussion, who will be Rosemary Trump. After the Q&A, we will highlight our organization's 2022 accomplishments, and we'll share our plans for the next few years. Also, you won't want to miss our presentation of a Battle of Homestead Foundation Lifetime Membership Award to a super deserving member, scholar, and activist, to be announced later. Who are we, the Battle of Homestead Foundation? Well, our founders, workers, community and workplace activists, teachers, artists, unemployed, were inspired some 30 years ago to research and commemorate the centennial of the dramatic labor conflict called the Battle of Homestead. In 1892, the eyes of the nation and, yes, the world were on the strong steel union called the Amalgamated, that had built powerful alliances within the workplaces and communities of the Steel Valley, and had a good and strong and progressive contract at the Carnegie Steel Works in Homestead. Yes, this epic struggle to preserve a strong contract and union at the large and modern Homestead Mill was ultimately defeated by the monopoly steel coal empire controlled by Andrew Carnegie and his henchman Henry Clay Frick. The main reason was because some 10 days after militant workers and townspeople repulsed 300 Pinkerton detectives hired by Frick to occupy the mill and protect scab labor, only 10 days after they were repulsed, the Pennsylvania governor was persuaded by all the industrialists in the state to send in 8,000 armed state National Guardsmen to protect imported strikebreakers to operate the mill, and they did. Despite the tragedy of a lost struggle and the resultant long work hours, substandard wages, and dangerous conditions in the industry for 40 more decades, until unionization returned, our founders in the Battle of Homestead, looking back, they dug deep to discover and celebrate the seeds of hope in the resilient vision, organization, and resistance of the workers and the community against their oppression. We continue that mission today. We hope to grow such seeds of hope by promoting a people's history, and also to work to empower today's workforce and to build strategies for a future of work that benefits all working families in our nation. We value the dignity of work. We celebrate labor's rich heritage and its pivotal place in our society. We advocate community engagement through programs and partnerships, and we work to strengthen human rights and build a robust democracy. So let's start our meeting and recognize the seminal importance of organized labor in building a sustainable and equitable economy. Let's reflect how learning and uncovering labor and people's history can fuel that mighty movement for change. Now I'm pleased to give the mic over to the Battle of Homestead Foundation Treasurer Rosemary Trump. By now, I needn't say no relation, but I'll say it one more time. Rosemary is our own labor heroine with 50 years assisting workers to organize, leading collective bargaining, calling corporate and elected leaders to account, and causing lots of good trouble. Rosemary will introduce our guest speaker and moderate the discussion to follow. Rosemary.
Oh, thanks, John. It really is a pleasure to be here this evening, and I'm so thrilled that our good friend and assistant and supporter, Fred Redmond, who we've had a wonderful relationship for many years, is with us this evening, especially in his capacity as the primary, he and Liz, the primary leaders of the labor movement, the National AFL-CIO, being elected as the Secretary Treasurer this last year in 2022 as the head of the AFL-CIO. And Fred, we really appreciate all those many years of wonderful service that you provided here locally in Pittsburgh and nationally through the Steelworkers Union as the International Vice President of Human Affairs. And now I understand you've gone international, that in 2021 you were elected as the president of the Trade Union Confederation of the Americas. So lots of responsibility on your shoulders, and thanks for stepping up to carry this weight and to give us the leadership that all the labor movement needs. And we appreciate it, and then we appreciate all the support that you've given to the Battle of Homestead in your tenure. And thank you. I know that that you were able to speak at a Bernie Kleiman lecture just a few years ago, and have come to the Pump House on many occasions for other events. And we, of course, consider that sacred ground for working the whole working class, not only here in the United States, but nationally, internationally. And thank you for coming to address this issue, because we think this is an important message. We think that history does lend to lessons that we still learn from today, and can use those lessons to prepare for the future of work in tomorrow. And we're anxious to hear your remarks, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Rosemary. And it's so good to see so many friends and that I've got to meet and known over the years. And Rosemary, you have definitely been a good and close friend of mine throughout the years. And I really want to thank you for the invitation to spend some time with you this evening. You know, as I look across this Zoom screen, that's what we do these days, right? We get in these little boxes. But I see so many good friends. Charlie McCollester, you know, I had been in Pittsburgh for maybe a month. I moved to Pittsburgh in 2006. Well, I was there for two stints. In 2002 to 2006, I was there working in our education department. Then I left and came back. No, I'm sorry, from 98 to 2002. I moved to Pittsburgh. I was there in our education department. And then I went to be the chief of staff for our new director in District 7. And I came back as vice president in 2006. And when I came back in 2006, I might have been there a month, and Charlie McCollester came to the building and introduced himself. Tell me about the Battle of Homestead Foundation and some of the labor history that, you know, Charlie told me about in Pittsburgh. Taught me some things I didn't know. And Charlie, I really appreciate your friendship over the years. And Mike Healy, let me tell you, you know, a couple of months ago, I was meeting with the railway workers union. You know, we was on the verge of going into this huge strike. And Mike, honestly, I started thinking about you, because when I was with the Steelworkers Union, sometime I had to give some of the things I did. I had to give the steelworkers attorneys the liability, and I used to always go out and get Mike to get me out of trouble. So Mike, it's good seeing you, and so many of you who I've gotten to know over the years. But Rose, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for that warm welcome. And I just want to thank you and John and this foundation, because y'all are, because what y'all are doing to educate and empower workers and preserve the legacy of the 1892 Homestead strike is so important. As most of you, if not all of you, don't know, I am a proud steelworker, as Rosemary said. I got my start at local 3911 at Reynolds Aluminum on the south side of Chicago. And it was nearly 25 years ago when I accepted a job at the Steelworkers International and moved to Pittsburgh. And one of my roles when I first came to Pittsburgh, as I said, was in the education department. And I conducted training sessions to fellow steelworkers members on labor history. And I did that work for 4 years for the Steelworkers Education and Membership Department. And I really enjoyed that work. I really enjoyed it because the labor movement has such a rich history. I am personally fascinated by it. I enjoy it. It's full of moments like the Homestead strike and the tragic battle along the Monongahela River. And these are moments that are important in our history and in our nation's history, because the fact of the matter is they're intertwined. You cannot separate this nation's history from the history of the labor movement. The labor movement's history and the history of our nation goes together. And Mother Jones once said that we should sit down and read and educate ourselves for the coming conflicts. And I agree with Mother Jones, because knowing the history of our labor movement and connecting it to our movement today, it can help us better prepare for the coming conflicts. And it can prepare us to fight harder and smarter. But we need to know that history. And that history can also help us today avoid the same pitfalls. When I think about the Homestead strike, the Homestead strike is more than a pivotal moment in labor history and the history of the steel industry. It's a landmark that was pointing to the future. I mean, when we look at it, 130 years after Homestead, there's the same gross inequality. Economic power is still concentrated in the hands of the few. The Bezos, the Musks, and the Zuckerbergs, they are the new Carnegies, Rockefellers, and Vanderbilts. And when we look at that history at Homestead, and we look at our situation today, CEO pay is out of control. Bosses making a day what most of us would hope to save in a lifetime. And their greed has no boundaries. Today's robber barons have blamed workers for inflation while their companies continue to make record profits. Think about this. Last year, the average CEO to worker pay ratio of Standard & Poor's S&P 500 companies was 324 to 1. In 2020, it was 299 to 1. And in 2019, it was 264 to 1. So to put a fine point on this, during the pandemic, the ratio between CEO and worker pay jumped 23%. And instead of investing in their workforces by raising wages and keeping the prices of their goods and services in check, these new robber baron solution is to reap record profits from rising prices and cause a recession that puts working people out of our jobs. So the question today is, how do we counter runaway CEO pay? And we know that the answer is a collective bargaining contract, because we know that a collective bargaining agreement is the single most powerful tool to make sure all workers are included. It levels the playing field. A collective bargaining contract. It makes sure that workplaces are diverse and accessible, that there is equity in hiring practices, equity in pay and advancement opportunities, and that workers gain the skills needed for the jobs of the day and the jobs of tomorrow. See, there is incredible power in collective bargaining. And the workers at the Homestead strike, they knew that. And America's workers are coming to that realization too, today. Today, American workers are turning to the labor movement for solutions because they see us as a counter to runaway inequality and a hollowed out middle class. They see how we in the labor movement have turned bad jobs into good careers, how we continue to demand equal pay, respect on the job, and end the sexual harassment and discrimination in all of its forms. And that's the kind of leadership and change that so many people are looking for right now. You see, one thing that we have learned and we have seen since the pandemic is that working people are fed up with being underpaid and overworked. And they're fed up with feeling unsafe in our own workplaces. You know, I was looking at a survey a couple of weeks ago. School teachers in America named as one of their top 3 priorities is safety and health on the job. School teachers go to work every day and fearing for their own safety and health. And union approval amongst the public, this is the good news. Union approval amongst the public is at its highest in decades. 71% in the latest Gallup poll. People who took the poll say that they approve of unions. And they don't just approve of unions, they want to be in a union. But yet tens of millions of working people want to join a union. We need to capture that enthusiasm because workers want and deserve the right and respect that comes with the union card. And it's our job to get cards in more of those workers' hands. But the fact of the matter is, and what makes that task difficult is because our labor laws are broken. Our labor laws here in the United States prevent huge segments of workers from joining the union, such as independent contractors, which employers use to misclassify their workers. And they favor employers who try to stop workers from coming together. Corporations can bust unions, not with the lawless violence of the Pinkertons that they did at Homestead, but it's just as blatant today. Because employers have the right under law to hold captive audience meetings and to literally fire workers just for speaking up and expressing their desire to join a union. And when workers do overcome obstacles to form a union, and Mike knows a lot about this, then legally, under labor law, okay, many of these corporations literally refuse to bargain a first contract. And see, these employers know that they can get away with it. They're more than willing to pay consultants the bus unions, and then when that fails, they pay the weak fines that's imposed upon them from the Department of Labor. Whatever it takes to prevent workers from having good wages and benefits, safer jobs, and more racial and gender equity, from having more power and more prosperity, employers are aware, and they're hiring these union-busting law firms to keep workers from exercising their right to form a union. So, reforming our labor laws, it is essential if we want to keep building our capacity and if we want to capture this moment when we see workers, particularly young workers, workers of color, women, are standing up and saying, enough is enough. And the only thing that these workers are asking for is to share in the wealth that they help to create every day. The baristas at Starbucks, Amazon workers, Whole Foods, workers are saying enough is enough, and they're coming together collectively, okay, for dignity and respect on the job. And look, no matter how big or small, each organizing win improves the lives of workers. Better wages and benefits, access to health care, make their jobs safer and more secure. It's our muscle to run an effective political program and member-to-member campaigns, but we have to grow our movement because it helps us. The more that we grow our movement, it helps us shape the economic and social policies, and it maximizes our influence on national campaigns and in our support for collective bargaining and collective action. Look, at last year's AFL-CIO convention, we announced the formation of the Center for Transformational Organizing. And this is a program that's designed to be a central place where we can collaborate and innovate and share resources on cross-movement organizing efforts. See, I've never seen this in my long career in the labor movement, but we came together last year trying to organize Starbucks workers in Birmingham, Alabama. And we had 35 unions who sent in organizers. No skin in the game. These workers were going to join RWDSU. There was no competition amongst other unions. But the labor movement came to the realization that a rising tide lifts all boats. And it's essential that whether it's in this union or that union, that workers have the right to organize. But our job isn't done when the first contract is ratified. Our greatest challenge is unionizing workers. And what do I mean by that? It's member engagement, it's internal organizing, it's educating and training members and union leaders and community partners to communicate the core value of the labor movement, to engage more of our members to show the value that the union brings to their lives. And that's what we need to do as union leaders, as union members, as concerned members of the future of our community and country. And look, that's exactly the kind of work that this foundation is doing. Labor history is the foundation of the labor movement, and we have to tell the truth about labor history, the good and the bad and the ugly. Okay? In 2019, the AFL-CIO headquarters was burnt. It was burnt. It was down for a year. And you may recall that night when the 45th President of the United States came across Lafayette Park, which is right down the street from our headquarters, stood in front of the church, which is on the corner of our headquarters, held the Bible upside down. Y'all recall that night? And as the military push back under this president's orders, the protesters, and disperse them, the AFL-CIO headquarters was burnt down. Well, not burnt down, but the lobby was destroyed. And I never forget the next day I got a call from Rich Trump. And Trump asked me, he said, Fred, what do you think is the problem? Why would they attack our building? And I had to remind Rich of that labor history. You can't deny that history. That history tells us that 1959, A. Philip Randolph, the only African-American on the AFL-CIO Executive Council, he spoke and he addressed the AFL-CIO delegates at the convention. And he pleaded with those delegates that we cannot continue to deny Blacks in the South the opportunity to join the union. Is that we have to be a united labor movement. And George Meany, who was the president of the AFL-CIO, looked at Mr. Randolph and told the audience, well, who made you the spokesman for the Negro? And sat A. Philip Randolph down. And then A. Philip Randolph, along with some of his more progressive allies in the labor movement, Walter Reuther, Sidney Hillman, and others, they got together and they got Meany to invite Martin Luther King to speak at the AFL-CIO convention 2 years later in 1961. And Dr. King made a passionate plea for this relationship to develop between the labor movement and the civil rights movement. Dr. King said in that speech, the two greatest movements for social and racial justice is the labor movement and the civil rights movement. And he called for unity within those two movements and called for us to work together. And the audience clapped and they cheered Dr. King. And the next time Dr. King spoke to George Meany was in 1963. And he called George Meany and asked for support on the March on Washington. And George Meany could not get a resolution passed. And the AFL-CIO was not on record for supporting the March on Washington. And Walter Reuther, he raised money and he sent buses all over the country, bringing union members to Washington, D.C. A friend of mine used to be vice president of the auto workers, used to tell me, Fred, the only reason steel workers from Pittsburgh, from Sparrows Point, from Birmingham got to D.C. was on UAW buses. Jimmy Settles was right. We have to be true about our history, the good, the bad, the ugly, because if we're going to go forward as a movement, we have to understand from whence we came. And then Dr. King, as we all know the story, he took his last breath in Memphis, Tennessee, 1968, standing up on behalf of union members. And I read autobiography of, it was biography of Ralph Abernathy. And the author said that the most animated that he ever seen Mr. Abernathy was his first call with George Meany. And the conversation and the story goes that Dr. King's people, his aides, tried to get him not to go to Memphis because they was working toward the Poor People campaign. But Ralph Abernathy said the conversation went something like this. Why are you supporting the labor movement when they did not support us? Now, that's our history. And we have to be real. So under the Shuler-Redmond administration, we formed the Racial Justice Task Force after that call, that initial call I had from Rich Trumper to talk about what can we do better. And we're rebuilding those coalitions and that relationship between the AFL-CIO, civil rights groups, social justice groups, the LGBTQ plus community, and like-minded progressives like us in order to form a powerful movement in this country. You see, when Ralph Abernathy became president and led the civil rights movement, they shift their focus. The civil rights community started forming alliances with more progressive unions, not with the AFL-CIO. So we're changing that paradigm. And under leadership of this president, Leah Shuler, we're making remarkable strides. We're working with our partners to improve the lives of all workers in this country. The push for meaningful, substantial immigration reform. To welcome into our ranks, and work with the LGBTQ+ community, and to be partners with the Black community throughout this country, working with organizations like the Coalition of Black Trade Unions and the A. Randolph Institute to make sure that the AFL-CIO reconnect those historical organizations with the AFL-CIO to make sure that Dr. King's reality or his dream of a strong coalition between organized labor and civil rights become a reality. Because that's how we change America, by bringing our two powerful movements together. And it's our job to show all working people that the labor movement is for everyone, with women and young people and people of color, with everyone, because the labor movement is open to everybody. And with other groups or institutions, we want them to be able to understand that and to say that. In this movement, we accept everybody, and we need everybody. All workers must play a role in pushing our labor movement forward, because diversity is our greatest strength, and an educated and engaged membership is our most powerful weapon. So we have to be inclusive, and we have to be unified 100%, and we cannot do that without our community partners and our allies, and working with organizations like the Battle of Homestead Foundation. So when we are the possibilities of coming together, then organized labor can be a powerful force for justice. And I mean that today, I mean that tomorrow, and I mean that for generations to come. Together, we can be a force for social justice, for racial justice, but more importantly, a force for fairness in this country, where everybody can have the opportunity to rise up and be part of this great middle class that a lot of you on this call, on this program, helped create. So Rose, I just want to thank you, and I want to thank the entire board for everything that you do every day on behalf of working people. And I'm going to stop right here, Rose, and I'll be happy to take some questions. Thank y'all very much.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Really, bravo, bravo. Thank you. I mean, those are important lessons. I mean, the fact is, the only way working people are going to get ahead is if they unite, come together, act in a method of solidarity and in cooperation with each other. And thank you for your leadership in bringing men, women together, regardless of race, color, creed, national origin, sexual identity. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey, we have an excellent question here from Saul Schneiderman. I'm sure you know Saul.
Absolutely.
Who's been very active in the Labor Heritage Institute for many years. And he's
Right.
we're going to be we're having an election, and I'm 99.9% sure that he's going to be elected to our board here at the Battle of Homestead as well. And he has a very, very poignant question of, do we really have a seat at this table over there at the White House? I mean, are you welcome there? I mean, is Joe Biden welcoming? Is he anxious to hear from you and the leadership of the labor movement, the various unions, and working in concert with you to bring about this vision of being able to go out and organize into the sector without these employers just, basically being warriors against the labor movement?
We do, and Saul, I could say in all sincerity, is that this president has been the most pro-union president that I have seen in my lifetime. And I've lived through Obama's and the Clintons and good friends of organized labor. But this president has been very open with us. He has been very inviting with us, and we don't necessarily agree on all issues. But when you think about what this president has done over the last 2 years, starting with the American Rescue Plan, And then when you look at what he's done in terms of COVID relief, and then when you look at the infrastructure bill, and when you look at the work that this president has done, it's just a litany of things that he accomplished in 2 years than some of the past presidents have accomplished throughout their entire administration, throughout their entire tenure in the White House. Look, I don't pretend to understand, what's the deal on these documents, I mean, it's sickening, it's embarrassing, but this president's commitment to working families is a serious commitment. And we're proud to work with him. I've met with him on numerous times. We, collaborated. He calls us on a regular basis. And, I remember me and Liz going to Wilmington, Delaware one weekend, along with 5 or 6 international presidents. And we sat in this hotel with this president. He didn't want anything. He didn't want nothing. He called us there just to hang out with him on a Saturday afternoon and just sit down and watch some college football, because he said he wanted to be around friends. It was one of those weeks where he had a terrible week, okay, in terms of some fights in Washington, D.C. He just wanted to be around friends. And he considered the labor movement as his friend. And like I said, we don't mind disagreeing with him. He don't take it personal. He likes our views, but I can honestly say that this president has been a champion for working people. And he has been the first president who have said that we cannot have an America without a labor movement. So yes, the commitment there is real, and we do have total access to this president.
Well, thank you. It's good news to have and to share. Thank you very much for that report. And then we have a question from a friend, Joe Waller, that has taught at Chatham University, and asked about what our relationship is with the Poor People's Campaign, and do we need a U.S. Labor Party in this country?
We have a great relationship with Reverend Barbara. Organized labor as a whole, we have supported Barbara throughout the Poor People's Campaign. I talked to Reverend Barbara last week, and as a lot of you know, he's getting ready to start a program at Yale University on social justice program. We're going to be partnering with him and doing some lecturing in that program. And as far as the labor party in this country is concerned, I think the issue is of such a magnitude today. When we're talking about income inequality, we got folks that have the audacity to talk about holding this Congress up over, and refusing to pass the debt limit. I don't know how serious they are, but, to have those discussions on the back of cutting Social Security and Medicare, okay, this is serious business. I think that our best hope, and this may be it is partisan. I think our best hope is within the Democratic Party, but we have to invoke labor ideas into the Democratic Party. I think that the Democratic Party need to include more labor people, and we need to include more labor principles into the Democratic Party. But I think trying to start a third party in this country will set us back many years. And these are years that our children and our grandchildren cannot afford to suffer through with the magnitude of issues that we have facing families and working families throughout this country.
Okay, and one of our other members, Alan Hart, who was the editor of the UE magazine, has a question about Biden's position in helping mediate the railroad workers' strike. And of course, one of the primary issues was paid sick leave, and it seems that the workers didn't achieve that. And how is it that we can persuade President Biden to work with the labor movement to bring about that inequity? Because in today's environment, not to have paid sick leave, it's just dangerous for everyone, for the workers, for the people who's being served by those workers, and for the economy as a whole.
Right. Look, that's a fascinating question, and I know we have some time restraints, so I could talk about this for the next hour. But I worked with the railroad workers during that whole ordeal, and President Biden. We got to keep in mind the first appointment that President Biden made when he became president was to the Department of Labor, and he named to that position a labor leader, Marty Walsh. Okay, to that position. So, President Biden and Marty Walsh, and look, let me just preface this by saying this. These railroad companies, these are billion-dollar enterprises. Okay, some of these folks would probably make Carnegie look like a Boy Scout. Okay, these are bad people. Okay, the owners of these railroads. You're talking about greed. You're talking about people who don't have a soul or a conscience for the people that work for them. But anyway, Biden had Marty Walsh negotiate an agreement. And in the rail industry, there's 12 unions. Okay, 8 of them signed the agreement. I believe it was 8, 4 of them didn't. But they got an understanding that if one of those 12 unions go on strike, nobody else would go to work. So by virtue of the fact that 4 unions did not sign off on the agreement, that could have triggered a nationwide strike that really done serious damage to this economy. Now, there are approximately, okay, now hear these numbers. I want y'all to grasp this concept, okay? 38% of workers in this country has no form of paid sick leave. Paid sick leave is not necessarily or exclusively a railroad workers issue. It's a union issue. Too many workers in this country get sick and don't have paid sick leave. And what this strike, or what this potential strike did, this threat of a railroad worker strike and shutting this economy down, was really bring focus to this issue that too many workers do not have some form of paid sick leave. Okay? We're going to get paid sick leave for every worker in this country. It's a union fight now. And then what this president had to do, first of all, he was a little concerned because we signed off on the deal. 4 unions walked away from the deal. So he's a little perturbed about that. But what this president had to wrestle was, do we shut down the US economy? This economy stood to lose, okay, close to $1 billion a day if you couldn't move rail in this country. And those was real numbers. This president had to decide, do we risk that or do we try to settle this? And like we say in the labor movement, live to fight another day. I am convinced that this president will sign a bill, if we could get that bill to his desk, paid sick leave for every full-time worker in this country. So we have work to do. And I cannot thank the railroad workers enough for putting a spotlight on that issue. Now, did this president turn his back on railroad workers? What a lot of people did not hear was what was in the deal. Okay? What was in the deal? Okay? We're talking 23% pay raises. We're talking dealing with another sticky issue that was affecting these railroad workers. Shift sizes was dealt with, okay? Hours of work was dealt with. Some of these folks is required to work 14, 16 hours a day. So all in all, and I know President Schuler took a little heat from the press for saying this, okay? But all in all, it was a good contract. But the issue of paid sick leave, we were unable to get addressed. So like we said in in the Steelworkers Union, the battles that we had, the last battle we just had with U.S. Steel. We didn't get everything we want. Battles we have with the LTVs of the world, okay? The battles that we've had with Alcoa aluminum over the years, okay? What we always say is we're going to fight enough to live to fight another day. And that's what we did with the railroad industry. And those workers could hold their heads up high. This president pushed the railroad companies to do some things they did not want to do, but paid sick leave wasn't in the cards this round of bargaining. But we can't stop there. We will not be satisfied with the labor movement until every worker in this country has some form of paid sick leave. Okay, the numbers are too high. So thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Fred. Thank you for
I
spending the
appreciate
time.
it's good seeing everybody. Everybody take care. All right, let's keep the fight going. All right.
Thank you. Absolutely.
everybody.
Solidarity forever.
Solidarity forever. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. We really appreciate it. Brother Redmond, thank you so much for being with us. Okay, now we have our business that we're going to attend to as an organization, and we've had a very interesting year, and we are, like a lot of things in our society today, are in the process of looking at new horizons, new opportunities, because of the pandemic, because of the situation in the economy, because of the political situation in the country. And in many ways, we're going to demonstrate that we have a wonderful opportunity to advance our mission in ways that will get us where we want to go. And a lot of our business that we've been conducting in committees, in our education and our programs, are providing the tools and the resources to actually build our mission and to build the labor center that we so desire. So these reports will be committee reports that we'll go through. And let's first start with our treasurer. Rosemary, you're back on the camera. And we're going to briefly have a shared report from the treasurer, and everyone can look at our financial situation, which is a challenge.
Yes, so I'm going to ask Nathan Ruggles to put up our end of the year report on the screen, and it is available if you write to us at our bhfprograms@gmail.com for a full copy of it. But I'm going to try to provide a quick summary of our financial status. Basically, we're spending down a lot of our savings to try to move forward towards our dream of having a labor heritage and future work center, and by increasing our staff, we have now 4 part-time staff, a operations manager, Larry McCullough, all the magic that behind the scenes in terms of our Facebook postings and our email blast and our media work to get advertising out about the message about our programs. Larry's responsible for that, including taking over a lot of the administrative duties of our organization, including the website and all the social media. So in any event, I want to first thank all of you who are on this event this evening, because I know you have donated and or provided dues in the last year and are re-upping for 2023 at this time. And as a result of our dues collection, we collected $5,113.02 in donations and $2,185.50 in dues, providing approximately a little over $7,000. Plus, we got another $10,000 in grants from various nonprofits and foundations. So, our total income that includes the money that we charge for our Mother Jones Theater production, we had a total of $21,884.66 in the year of 2022 come into our treasury. However, we did spend a lot of money. And as I said, we spent it continuing our archive program, and you're going to hear about that program very shortly by Cassidee Knott. And by paying Cassidee as well as two other of our interns who've been doing wonderful, wonderful work of preserving various collections for our posterity, and to eventually go up on the web, but more about that later. But essentially, we spent $23,749 in contracted services. And the other major expense was for our programs and events, including our theater production, that added up to approximately $8,200. So all in all of our expenses, everything from our permits and insurances and all the expenses that go along with running an organization totals $51,454.66 total, meaning a net loss of about $30,000 this year, which we, thank goodness, had the Bill Campbell Fund available to transfer that money from that fund into the general fund for making up that difference in expenses over income. So if we go to the balance sheet, I can share with you what the current balances are in each of our accounts. The first general fund account as of December 31st of 2022 was $15,403.54. Our labor education, which is the money that we received from a longtime member of the Laundry Workers Union, the Weisberg Fund, continues to have $57,803.01 in its account. And the Bill Campbell Fund has $41,261.57. Our total checking and savings balance is $114,819.97 as of December 31. So thank you. As I said, thank you for all your donations. And Larry McCullough will be presenting a whole program that will talk about reaching out to funders, large and small, to try to really build our treasury, to commit ourselves to having an institution that will be able to preserve the history and plan for the future of work, especially now that artificial intelligence and robotics are clearly here today and to stay and to continue to grow and displace workers from good jobs. And we've got to figure out a way in which to deal with that concern. So with that, I complete my report, and I urge it. I submit to the membership its approval. Thank you, John.
Motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
Thank you. Did I hear Sister DeMarco make that motion? Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
That would be Sister Donsky, I believe, makes that motion. And is there any further discussion, or is there any discussion for this on this matter? If anybody's looking at the gallery, you see any hands raised at all?
I'll put
Wait a minute, we're not voting yet. We're just having,
okay.
We're seeing if there's any discussion. Okay, good. All those in favor of accepting the treasurer's report, say aye, please.
Aye.
Wave your hands. All those opposed?
Aye, we're all muted.
All those opposed remain muted. No, I'm just kidding. Okay,
Thank you very much.
this report is accepted, and thank you, Rosemary. Now we want to move on to the activity that has gone on despite the pandemic, despite the inability of us to have found a good excuse me, I was reading a message apparently I sent to myself, but our archives committee has faithfully been able to conduct their business, and many laboring alone in the only place where we have been able to identify an appropriate climate controlled secure location for us to be able to build our archives, and that's the Guardian Storage in Homewood. And they've been faithfully working in Homestead, and they've been faithfully working to do that. And I'm very happy to present the administrator of our archive program now, Cassidee Knott, and Cassie is going to present to you the activities of the committee this year. And there's Jackie as well, the chair of the committee, and Perry, the co-chair with Perry. So Cassidee, do your thing, please.
Cool. So while I wait for the stuff to get pulled up, the PowerPoint. Yeah, I'm Cassidee. I've been working with you all for about, oh gosh, I think almost 3 years. That's a lot. That's fantastic. Nathan, are we getting the PowerPoint up, or do you want me to do it?
I think Jackie did want to introduce you,
Oh yeah,
Cassidee.
go.
That's
Take
okay.
a moment.
Go ahead. That's fine. I just wanted to, as chair of, thank you, Nathan, and thank you, Cassidee, as co-chair of the Archives Committee, Archives and Special Collections, as most of you know, and as our president, John, has indicated, this has been an ongoing project now for approximately 3 years, and work has continued with overcoming many challenges, including, of course, the pandemic. But I just wanted, I know we have limited time. I wanted to reiterate that the, impetus for the Archives project is very much in connection with our mission as an organization. And that is, of course, telling the people's history. And I wanted to share this idea behind community archives, because that's what our project entails, amassing a community archive. Motivated by social change, community archives document, shape, and provide access to histories that might otherwise be lost and stories that might go untold, ultimately reclaiming the power to construct their own narratives and determine what has value for the present and what has value, of course, for the future. And so with the help of so many who've been involved in this project, as John indicated, Perry Recker, who serves as co-chair as well, and all of the contributing donors, we are really progressing in a very effective and successful manner. And that would not be possible without the leadership of our archives administrator, with input from our advisor, Sinead Bly, who could not be on this meeting. But I'm glad to introduce, of course, our archives administrator, Cassidee Knott, and she's going to share our progress report with you tonight. Thank you.
Perfect. We can skip this slide. Perfect. Okay, so lots been going on in the archives lately. We are moving and shaking, which is fantastic. One thing I really want to shout out to the entire archives committee is that we, despite the pandemic, have done so much, even though it might not you might not physically be able to see how much we've done. we have really made leaps and bounds. Lately, for the past year or so, we've been focusing all of our efforts on digitization of our 3 primary archives collections, which we have been digitizing in order. That has been done by myself, our intern, Delana Collins, and our intern, Zach Adams, who's also here tonight. Zach, do you want to give a wave? And that's also under the guidance of Sinead Bly. So our first collection, BHF-A1, has been Charlie. So perk your ears up, Charlie. It's all about you. So primary scans are complete. All of Charlie's paperwork is in and on a flash drive, and he's ready to upload, which is like super exciting, super awesome. Big deal, because Charlie, if anybody has seen Charlie's collection, it's just absolutely full of paper and all of this amazing like photographs, things like that. So it's awesome and a feat in and of itself that we've been able to do that. Progress on BHF2, which is Mike. So Mike, your turn. Our paper scans are halfway complete, and we are moving on to next stages, which is photographs, material culture, things like that. And then if you know Mike's collection, I'm sure Mike knows himself. He is just like brimming with physical items, especially buttons. So we're moving on to photographing those, making sure those get done differently, because that's a different kind of digitization than necessarily scanning a piece of paper. We are actually doing a workshop with our interns, me, Sinead, Delana, and Zach this weekend to go over how to photograph these things correctly and how to digitize photographs, negatives, and slides. So BHF3, this is Mark, your turn. The collection is complete in terms of preservation and having it archived. So that aspect's awesome. And he is ready for scanning when we come to the end of Mike's. That's a spring, that's the goal. But as we all know, you know, time, people, I want to emphasize that although we are contracted workers, this isn't what we do every single day. A lot of us have full-time jobs, things we do on the side. This is just something we're passionate about, that we're want to move forward. So I say fingers crossed this spring, that's the goal, but you know, things get in the way, people's lives happen, COVID happens. So fingers crossed. So because of our grant that we received from Rivers of Steel, we actually owe them like kind of a final product of our digitization on March 31st. This is my priority. This is like, we're so close to that deadline that it's like blinders in the archives. If you're trying to talk to me about anything that isn't digitization, I'm gonna listen, but I'm gonna be like, listen, you can have my full attention after March 31st, and we can start talking about other things. But that's what we've been doing in the archives for over about a year now, and it's, to say that we've been able to do this in this timeline is amazing. Is like, I know that's amazing as an archivist, but like to the outer world, it may not seem that like, oh wow, you just did that in a year. Like that's a lot in a year, and we've been doing it so diligently, so organized. Like we have such an emphasis on organization, making sure things are done correctly, making sure things are done fairly in our archives. We've been doing everything by the order it was donated to us. So yeah, next slide. So in terms of timeline, I want to emphasize it took time to create this history, and it's going to take time to preserve it. So we have a limited staff, and like I said, a lot of us have full-time jobs, lives, children. I just got engaged. I'm planning a wedding. We have all these different things going on. Oh, even one of our interns is in grad school. This is something we're all passionate about, and we're taking the time out of our day and busy schedules to get this stuff done and share this history. So our active participants at this time are Sinead. She has limited hours, and she's kind of our workshop specialist. She works a lot with me and making sure, because she has such deep knowledge of digitization, she's working with me a lot. Then me, I am like your catch-all of the archives right now. I'm doing almost anything and everything you can think of. I'm doing it. Very time consuming, but I'm like happy to do it. So like all the emails, getting stuff put online, working with the interns, all that comes down to one person. Then there's Delana and Zach, who have been our awesome digitization specialists. They work so hard. So kudos to them. If you ever get to meet them, Zach's here tonight. Delana has class. Give them a pat on the back. These people are doing just awesome work. As has our committee. Our committee has had our back this entire time, especially through COVID, making sure, you know, the spaces we're in are comfortable and everything is working and the wheel is spinning. And like I said, our grant with Rivers of Steel has that hard deadline of March, and that is our main priority. I get lots of emails like, hey, we might have an extra donation, or let's do this thing. Those are all, that's fantastic. And I'm so excited about doing those things after March 31st. So next slide. So what's next for us? Like I said, March 31st, that's that digitization deadline from Rivers of Steel. I imagine we'll be doing some digitization after that date, but we have to have a physical proof uploaded online on PA Power Library to show that we use this grant for what we said we were going to use it for. And it is very, very, very important to us that we keep that relationship with Rivers of Steel close so that we can continue to apply for these grants and get this money and get the archive the support it deserves and it needs. Other than that, we are considering onboarding some more materials, adding to a current collection we already have, which was Jim Homan. After that, we have a donation that's kind of sitting in limbo right now. So it's a donation and then accession, relocation, and processing of the Bill Buckley collection. It is safe. It is under our care currently. It's just a matter of getting it to our Guardian storage from its location, which I believe is in Indiana. And then there's another possible donation of the Betty Esper collection. That's still something we're in the talks about. That would be that would almost double what we have in our current location. Our current location is busting out of the seams, which is like awesome, but also like a little stressful as an archivist, because you're like, okay, do we get another unit? Do we, what are we going to do with all this material? Where do we go from here? In terms of also what's next, I'm also an oral historian at Duquesne University. So using my special skills to then maybe conduct some oral histories with our current donors. There's been talks from our current donors to add to their collections. There's been rumor and talk about maybe a possible museum space, traveling exhibit. If anybody visited with us at the anniversary this past July, we had a bit of a display that we put together to kind of celebrate our archive, celebrate the date. There's been talk about that, but what it all comes down to is funding and space and doing it organized and correctly. I don't want to do anything or take any of our items out of our archives into an exhibit somewhere else or things like that without the proper protocol, without the proper respect to the items we have. Because guys, we have some really, really, really cool stuff, and I would hate to lose it or not respect it in the way that it deserves. We are so committed to getting this stuff out there. Like we said, we talked about, this is, you know, a public space. We work a lot with the community, and we want the community to be involved in our archives. Archives, a lot of times they can get stuck behind that wall of it's all in our donated stuff, but right now we really can't share anything physically with the public. So how we're kind of working around that without a museum space currently is digitizing our work. And with digitizing as well, you give access not just to your local community, Pittsburgh region, maybe even PA. You're giving this material internationally. People all over the globe can look at Mike's buttons or Charlie's photographs or Mark's slides. That's amazing. So while I do think a museum space or some sort of physical location for us to share our collections is wonderful, I also think don't hate on the digitization. That's huge. I'm so excited for it. I think it makes our archives really accessible. That's my spiel, guys.
That's really great, Cassidee, and thank you so much for the presentation. And people should know that the digitization goes up to the Pennsylvania Power Library, correct? Which is and yes. We are an accepted donor to this statewide digital museum already. So you guys are doing a great job and we really appreciate it, Cassidee. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can I just say, this is Irene. I just want to say, Cassidee, this is amazing. I was involved in a small foundation's putting together an archive. And I've got to say, to do this for what is basically a volunteer organization, I'm like blown away, really. Whatever you produce is going to be absolutely marvelous. I mean, the diligence at which you're going through this, we can't thank you enough, and on your colleagues. Thank you so much.
That's great, Irene. Thank you so much. Okay, now we got to move along because as usual, we're running a little late, but we do have really interesting things for you. And let's hear from Suzanne Donsky, the chair of our program committee. Let's talk about what we accomplished. We made other kinds of archives with our programs this year as well. Suzanne?
Thanks, John, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to bring you a report of the program committee's activities over the last year and to give you a glimpse of what's to come in 2023. First, let me thank the members of the program committee. These are a group of truly dedicated people who really give their all to making the Battle of Homestead Foundation's programming successful. Currently serving on the committee are John Haer, Rosemary Trump, Vice President Pauline Greenlick, Nathan Ruggles, Larry McCullough, Mara Bainbridge, and I. I also want to thank former committee member Elizabeth Bierke, who had to step down from the committee for personal reasons late in 2022, but who contributed countless hours of research and many great ideas in the past few years. We miss you and we thank you for your service, Elizabeth. The program committee is responsible for developing and presenting all public-facing programming for the organization, including the weekly breakfast meetings, the annual meeting, monthly program series, and our July 6th commemorations of the Battle of Homestead. During the past couple of years, we have significantly expanded our audience reach and email list membership, an expansion that began with the use of Zoom during the lockdown. After 2 years of pandemic programming, our fabulous July 6, 22 commemoration program marked a very special return to in-person gatherings. And since that time, we've been working with a hybrid model of in-person and Zoom presentations. I'm happy to say that we've been able to employ this hybrid model for our regular Wednesday morning breakfasts at the Waterfront Eaton Park. This has allowed our comrades near and far, several from other countries or other places in the States, to continue to join our discussions. Otherwise, if we were only to do in-person meetings, they couldn't be part of it, and it would be our great loss. These breakfast meetings are a wonderful way to both socialize with interesting people from many different backgrounds and to learn about all matters related to the past, present, and future of work, whether in the realm of union organizing, the environment, art, or labor history. Featured speakers at the breakfasts in the past year have included none other than renowned actor Mark Rylance, filmmaker Bruce Spiegel, author Mitchell Troutman, and most recently, Dr. Wendy Goldman, the Paul Mellon Distinguished Professor of History at CMU. Professor Goldman spoke recently to a packed house about the historical background of the current Ukraine-Russia war. In the coming year, the program committee hopes to bring you more special guests like these as part of the breakfast program, and you should feel free to suggest possible speakers. We invite you to enjoy these weekly meetings with us. If you're not yet receiving the Zoom link for our breakfast meetings and you'd like to be included in the email, please drop a note to bhfprograms@gmail.com. Otherwise, if you're in town and you can make it, join us for the in-person gathering at the Waterfront Eaton Park between 8 and 8:30 in the morning, when the informal portion of the gathering begins, chatting and ordering our breakfast. The Zoom coverage of the program and the official meeting begins at 9 a.m. Turning now to the monthly programs that we've presented in the last year, let's take a look at a wonderful summary video that our very talented filmmaker and vice president of BHF, Pauline Greenlick, created for us. And by the way, the beautiful song that you're going to hear with it was written and performed by BHF's own amazing troubadour board member, Mike Stout. Nathan, can you share the video, please?
Here's to all the people who do all the work but never get recognized. You never grab no headlines, your name is never memorized. I'll remember you, put you in my heart, keep you close to me. And I'll sing this song for you, and I'll tell the world the part that you played in our history. To all the thinkers whose thoughts we get from someplace else, the ghostwriters and the singers whose songs were sung for somebody else's wealth. Though you're behind the scene, faithless in the dark, you're lost in sanity. I'll use every means, show the world the mark that you made in our history. And here's to all the people who stand up and speak for what is right, who in the face of fear and intimidation shine like a beacon light. I'll toot your horn for you, stake your claim in song, I'll unfold your mystery, and I'll give credit where it's due, and I'll show where you belong on the chains of our history. And here's to all the freedom fighters whose love is etched in blood, whose deeds and contributions are buried in every nation's mud.
There you have it. That's a look back at our monthly programs from the last year, and you can see that there was a lot going on. There's a lot to unpack, and there's insufficient time in which to do it. So again, I'll just refer you to the YouTube channel, and you'll find full videos of the year's programs. I do want to mention one. Be sure to check out Pauline's video of the July 6th Battle of Homestead commemoration in 2022. Simultaneously, a joyful and sober observance that featured a proclamation of the day presented by Allegheny County Council member Paul Klein. We had multiple speakers talk about their reflections on the battle's significance through the years. There was outstanding music, a display of work-related artifacts from the Archives Committee that you heard Cassidee reference, a display of 2 original paintings of historic figures, Fanny Sellens and Mother Jones, that were painted by member and professional artist Jennifer Rempel, and much more. It was truly a wonderful event. And we hope you can make it this coming July, because it's going to be even better. But looking back on last year's programming from this video overview, I see some of our major goals leaping out. First, we sought to provide programming that features a wide variety of topics related to the past, present, and future of work. Our program subjects included women organizing in the workplace through the 9-to-5 movement, historical development of labor mediation practices, the remarkable story of Herman Martius, the grandfather of member Kip Dawson, as told in the program Death of a Jewish Radical in Erie, 1922. We also took a look at the historical significance of bootleg coal miners and their seizure of the coal industry between 1925 and 1942 with author Mitch Troutman, based on his book, Bootleg Coal Rebellion. And we presented an overview of fascism in American today. Definitely a heady topic. Yet another program, the annual Bernie Kleinman Lecture, co-sponsored with the United Steelworkers, provided an overview of the struggles that steelworkers currently face in the industry. In still other programs, we explored the development of green businesses and the possibilities of creating alternatives to plastics and hydrogen hubs. Through a professionally produced documentary by Bertelsmann Foundation filmmaker Sam George, we immersed ourselves in the local 1196 strike against ATI in Brackenridge, PA. We then took a deep dive into the powerful work of activist Mother Jones through a professionally produced musical. And we surveyed the rise and fall of the steel industry in Western Pennsylvania through the world premiere of filmmaker Bruce Spiegel's film called City of Steel. Second, we sought to include in our programs a diverse range of speakers from both near and far, young and not so young, and those representing different genders and races. That continues to be a goal. Third, we tried to vary the format for our programs, from panel discussions to featured speakers, from book talks and film discussions to the play Mother Jones in Heaven. And we sought to incorporate music that reflects the past, present, and future of work. The July 6th Battle of Commemoration particularly comes to mind, with amazing musical performances by professional musicians and BHF members Mike Stout and Jason Kendall. Finally, one of our goals for the 2022 programs was to further broaden our audience reach by seeking co-sponsors for our programs. Such co-sponsors in 2022 included Calliope House Folk Music Society, the United Steelworkers, the Waterfront, the Bertelsmann Foundation, and the Breathe Project, to name just a few. As a result of this overall plan, we were able to reach more than 1,000 audience members in the last year, with an average of over 100 registrants per program. And importantly, our participants weren't just local, but came from various corners of the US and overseas. All in all, the committee is pleased about the extent to which we met our goals in 2022. And we intend to work even harder to meet those goals in the coming program year. Now, speaking of 2023, the committee's work began even earlier this year in preparation for January 14th, when BHF was privileged to co-sponsor with Park Place AME Church in Homestead, PA, a fabulous unity program in connection with the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Conceived and executed by board member Connie Portis, who is herself a consummate organizer and an invaluable link to the Black community in Homestead and a gift to all of Pittsburgh. The program featured Professor Joe Trotter as the keynote speaker. Dr. Trotter is the Giant Eagle Professor of History and Social Justice and the past History Department Chair. You'll see here a picture from the event. John Haer, you'll see over in the corner, and Al Hart and Mike Stout and other congregants filled the back of the church. It was a wonderful event with stirring music from the civil rights movement and age-old spirituals. Afterwards, we joined together downstairs to do what matters most, break bread together. And I'll only tell you that it was as nourishing to our souls as the food was delicious. It was really a terrific event. And Reverend Jeffrey Tate, the minister of the church, graciously welcomed the many Battle of Homestead participants who were present for the program. So thank you again, Connie Portis, for making it happen. I hope it's something we can repeat in the future. Now the program committee is moving into the deep weeds of planning the 2023 program series. Our first official monthly program, a presentation by the well-regarded historian Tammy Hepps, is called Stilltown Jews and will take place via Zoom on March 23, 2023. Anyone who's ever heard Tammy Hepps speak knows that you are always in for a treat, with boatloads of fascinating, meticulously researched and beautifully presented information. I promise that you won't be disappointed, so mark your calendars for March 23. Other programs for the series will cover a wide range of issues, including commemoration of the 1922-23 miners' strike in Windber, PA, jazz and the working class experience, a new vision for the future of the Mon Valley, worker power on the rise, and the Donora smog disaster. These are but a few of the terrific program proposals that we've been reviewing. So watch your email, watch the BHF website and our Facebook page for more information about upcoming programs. With that, I'll stop, but I just want to thank those of you who have tuned in and are shown up for the Foundation's programs in the past year. You are what matters, and we thank you for your continued support. John?
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Leadership is so important to get things done, and we have leadership that is helping to lead us the way. And this year is leading us, as I mentioned before, to really accomplish both our mission and our ultimate goal. But we have to take seriously, you got to spend money to build, you have to spend money, and you have to make money to be able to reach your goals. And we're going to try to exert the kind of leadership that will incrementally help us be able to do that. And to help lead us in that direction, of all people, we found a PhD ethnomusicologist. And it turns out that PhD ethnomusicologist has written over 200 plays about working people. But more than that, he's quite an activist as well as other things. And Larry McCullough is going to talk to us about how we are going to build and be proud of the Center for Labor History and Future of Work. Larry, it's a tough row to hoe, but we're going to do it.
Well, I'd like to thank our featured speaker, Mr. Redmond, for his remarks on the importance of labor history. Can everybody hear me okay? Pretty much? Good enough. Because making sure that our American labor history is understood as important is what the Battle of Homestead Foundation has been doing since its very inception. And it's really, I think, why all of us are here tonight and all the other times we get together. Now, some years ago, the foundation's membership conceived the idea of a labor history museum, a museum that would not just tell the story of the 1892 Battle of Homestead, but the story of Western Pennsylvania labor all through the earliest years right up to now. Studies were done, discussions were held, blueprints were drawn, and now in 2023, we are formally announcing the start of our capital campaign to create the Center for the History and Future of Work. What will it do? Well, it's going to celebrate the history of workers in Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania, all workers, past and present, from the early industrial labor of miners, mill hands, and artisans, to today's diverse array of workers in knowledge, service, education, healthcare, food supply, communications, all the other 21st century occupations. It will tell this history by presenting live events and online programs, exhibits, lectures, films, concerts, classes, teaching workshops, public forums, the archives we just heard about, programs that emphasize the vital role that these workers have played throughout the decades in shaping their communities and ours. And most importantly, how this history can prepare us for the future of work, the future that's actually here right now. Who will the center serve? Programs will be accessible to all and will especially be geared to enhance the labor history awareness of young people and students and community activists wanting to learn how to meet challenges they face that may have been faced before. Year-round programming will serve as a popular history and culture destination that draws visitors from Western Pennsylvania and beyond, with accompanying community economic benefits. Now, why do we think people, besides us, will care about this center and its history? It's the stories. It's the stories we've all been talking about, the stories about the people and the communities that labor built, the stories we've been gathering for years, the stories that make a difference in our lives as soon as we hear them. Now, these stories might be told in a play or a song or a movie, a work of art. They inspire us, they guide us, they spark us into action because they've changed the way we look at our world and the way we want to go about living in it. Here's an example, and I think Nathan's going to put up a little PDF here of a magazine article. One of the stories, a lot of you may be familiar with, happened back in 1982. It was written up in an article published a couple months ago in the Western Pennsylvania History magazine, published by the Heinz History Center. And it's the story of a steelworkers local in Homestead, Local 1397, that wanted to raise money to start a food bank that would feed the thousands of workers suddenly laid off as the mills shut down. They decided to organize a benefit concert. And they got some of Pittsburgh's top rock and blues performers to give a show at the Stanley Theater on April 15th, 1982. They called it Homestead Works. And they thought if they got a couple hundred people in and raised a few $100s, it'd be okay. Well, more than 3,000 people showed up that night. Maybe some of you were there to support those workers and their families. And Homestead Works raised more than $15,000 for that food bank, which is about, I think, $45,000 or so in current money. And that concert sparked similar food bank and worker relief fundraisers in nearby steel towns in the months to come. It evolved into the Mon Valley Unemployed Committee that took on a wide range of civic reforms and many more actions that address the economic and social disruption afflicting tens of thousands of our neighbors. And at the heart of it all, it was the stories that were made into songs, sung in a public performance that brought people together, a lot of them complete strangers, to hear those stories. And every one of those 3,000 people woke up the next day and in some way carried those songs and stories out into their world in one big community-wide ripple effect. And that, I think, is the very definition of grassroots social action. That's what one concert did, and that's what those stories did. And that's what the Center for the History and Future of Work will do. Tell those stories to a new generation. Take our history and use it to help people think about how to make a better future. Influence that future so it's the kind of future we want in this country, a future with equity and peace and justice for all. As Mr. Redmond says, everybody in, nobody out. Now, the first question people usually ask when you talk about a new center is, how much is this center going to cost? How much money do we need to raise to create a center for the history and future of work here in Pittsburgh? Well, we're going to need a building, either bought or leased or probably renovated. There's maintenance involved, insurance, staff, marketing, furniture, signs, putting together exhibits, taking down exhibits, all the expenses that any educational center requires to put on public programs. So I think the response to what's the center going to cost is, how much is this center worth to you, to us, and how much is it worth to tell these stories and make sure our young people and others can use this history to make a difference in their lives right now? I think we'll find out the answer to that soon enough, because we have started an official fundraising committee for the Center for the History of Future of Work. And each of you here tonight can be on that committee if you like. We're going to need your ideas and your input. The first thing we're doing is gathering names of potential donors that we can approach and ask if they'd like to support the center and make it the kind of educational service that we all envision. Now, if you'd like to be on the Center Fundraising Committee, just send an email to bhfprograms@gmail.com. I'm sure that'll show up in the chat, bhfprograms@gmail.com, and we'll start a conversation. You can see what we've already come up with as far as a basic brochure and overview. And you can always go to our website and learn more there. Again, a center like this, it's the dream we've had since the Battle of Homestead Foundation began. And you have to wonder sometimes if it might have been a dream of the workers who stood there on the pump house landing that night in July 1892, when they saw those boatloads of Pinkertons coming toward them with rifle raised and death in their eyes. You wonder if in all the excitement, all the chaos of that night, you wonder if just for a moment, they thought that that night would ever be remembered. If what they did to preserve the inherent dignity of labor, including sacrificing their lives, might mean something or anything to those who came after, their children, other workers, and their families, would it make any difference in the way men and women like them would be treated in the years to come? Well, 100 and almost 31 years later, we do remember. And we need the Center for the History and Future of Work to tell their stories and bring their hopes and their dreams and their unbreakable spirit into our world today. Thank you for helping us do that.
Thank you, Larry. And there it is, race funds, race pride, the Center for History and Future of Work. And take what you hear, and if you can, do your part, everyone. Do your part, and we will work and try to coordinate through our committee to develop the steps that will grow our work and more concretely develop this center doing what we do. Larry, thanks a lot. That was a wonderful presentation. What we need to move on to right now is a recognition of a person who will be our honoree tonight as a lifetime member of Battle of Homestead Foundation. Lifetime member concept was created 3 years ago, and several of our historic and long-term members have received this award. And I would like to introduce Charlie McCollester, our President Emeritus, who will introduce Patty DeMarco, who will be the recipient of our Lifetime Achievement Award. Charlie, you're on board. Hopefully you can unmute there.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I know we're running late, but we really want to honor an extraordinary woman, a great scholar, a political organizer who's helped change the politics of Pittsburgh, by her incredible involvement in the little suburb of Edgewood and what she's done there by building a community headquarters, council, chamber, et cetera, completely with the highest level of environmental technology. But what really she has done is she has organized an incredible listening to the people of Appalachia, the tri-state area, Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. And through that through dozens, if not many more than that, public meetings and listening help concretize proposals that were put down in the report about Appalachia and its needs, particularly in light of the cracker plant, the expansion of fossil fuel exploitation in these states and the plans for the future along those lines. Patty has been absolutely incredible in terms of her speaking on it, writing on it, and being really at the cutting edge worldwide on these issues. The reports that she helped generate and wrote were put into the Biden plan. Much of the environmental positive things that are in the present Build Back Better come right out of Patty DeMarco. And so we're incredibly proud to have her on our group. She caught a 165-pound halibut one time. She has done, she's an extraordinary woman. And we love her dearly, and she's done so much to help this organization. Thank you, Patty DeMarco.
Well, Charlie, thank you. You embarrassed me half to death, but I must say that none of that happens without a tremendous team. And certainly the Reimagine Appalachia had 50 organizations supporting it across 4 states. And I'm simply the chronicler of their exploits. And I think the Battle of Homestead Foundation is really at the intersection of where we are in a transformational time. We are looking at building on the basis of the needs of people, a shared prosperity that departs from the extractive patterns that had the Battle of Homestead at its heart, where a few became wealthy on the backs of the many who suffered tremendously and fought for every inch of what we got. We need to look at our way into the future and learn the lessons from those brave people.
I'm sorry.
It's our resilience.
Really broke.
What? The resilience of the people who stayed, the resilience of people who endured and are continuing to create a future that can really be better, a finer future. We look at the brownfields of the imploded steel mills that used to be in Pittsburgh, and Bruce Spiegel's film was so dramatic, showing some of that footage of the collapsing of the steel mills. But now we see rising in some of those brownfields the largest solar industrial location in the country, built by Scalo Solar on the Mill 19 site, which is becoming increasingly populated with new businesses. We see life returning to 8th Avenue down in Homestead. I mean, we were there last evening. It was full of people working to get a Democratic majority in the House of Representatives in Pennsylvania. And I think these signs of resurging life require us to look at a different way of work. Okay, it's getting to be artificial intelligence, it's getting to be robotics, but there are jobs in those fields. There are workers needed to build and program and design the robots. There are workers needed to build the artificial intelligence networks that will give us microgrids that talk to each other and displace the central station polluting power plants. We need to start working on the thinking behind a circular economy, a regenerative economy, instead of an extractive economy. And I think that's what I find so exciting about these emerging times. And I think the Battle of Homestead is right in the middle of that intersection, taking the lessons of the past, learning from it, and applying it to the current time and building for the future. And it's my honor to be associated with this group. Thank you so very much for this honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Could we all give Patty a thumbs up and check out the gallery, because they're all thinking of you, and thank you so much. And now we are beginning to wind down. If you're not yet wound down, and I am pleased to give you the results of our board election. Every year, some members are elected to or re-elected to the board because we believe in having opportunities for new life on our decision-making body. And we did have several people request leave from the board because their lives were quite complicated. And they served us so well that I just want to mention to Steffi Domike, thank you so much for your service, and we hope to be able that you'll be able to enjoy your leave and come back to us soon. And also Callie Sheets, you have served us really well, particularly on the Archives Committee. We know you're going to have a busy life, getting married. And we hope that when things settle down in your life, you'll be able to help us again. And I do want to mention that their services have been greatly appreciated. We had 4 candidates run. 2 were current board members who stood for re-election. Their term was up and they stood for re-election. And I'm pleased to announce that Al Hart, Connie Portis, and Saul Schneiderman from Washington, D.C., and Kelly Vereb were all elected to our new 2023 board. They will serve 3-year terms, and we're very pleased that they will be joining us. And I won't read their bios, but all of you would have an opportunity, if you read your emails, members, read your emails, and you'll find out that we have more leaders in the process of joining our ranks on the board, and we're very, very pleased with that. That being said, I want to thank all the participants tonight, and particularly the membership that has taken the time. And I hope that you have enjoyed the program tonight. And I do want to introduce Pauline Greenlick, our vice president, and Pauline will wrap up and have the final word tonight. Pauline.
Okay, well, thank you, John. And I just want to thank everybody here who has just started off this wonderful year for the Battle of Homestead Foundation. And I just want to extend a big thank you to our wonderful keynote speaker, Fred Redmond, for his very interesting and enlightening speech about labor history and then labor movement today. And also, we're so proud of you, Patty. And we just are so thankful for all that you're doing to make our world a better place, and for all of your environmental work. And also our appreciation extends to all of our very hardworking committee members, Suzanne Donsky for your program committee leadership, and John Haer for our leader of our nominations committee, and Rosemary for keeping all the numbers straight. Thank you as treasurer and finance committee head. And also special kudos to our Archives Committee, Jackie Cavalier and Perry Recker, and also for the wonderful work Cassidee Knott has been doing as our archives administrator, and Sinead Bly, and our very hardworking interns, Delina Collins and Zach Adams. Thank you very, very much. And a big, big thank you to you, Nathan Ruggles, and to Maura Bainbridge, because we all wouldn't be here if we weren't handling all of our Zoom technology wizardry here. So thank you very much. And I also, we're filled with thanks to all of you who have joined us today. And we really want you to be a part of our group. If you are not, please, you are welcome. We welcome all new members and supporters. We have a really exciting, as you heard from Susanna, exciting 2023 program events planned. And all of our events are free and open to the public. Some will be on Zoom, some will be in person this year, which is really exciting. And we would really love to have you visit us at the waterfront every Wednesday. We meet at the waterfront Eaton Park, opening up at 8 a.m. till 10 a.m. And if you cannot join us in person and enjoy breakfast with us, then also we would love to have you join us on Zoom. And in order to know about all of these programs and to know about what's going on in our Wednesday programs, please visit us at our website, and also submit your name so you could be part of our email blast, and you'll be notified many times about what the upcoming activities are. So to be able to continue though all of these exciting programs, I'm going to reiterate what we've been saying. We need money, and we really, any amount is fine. Small and hopefully large amounts will come and then lead us to our wonderful goal of having what Larry McCullough had outlined this evening, our new Labor History Center, which we're hoping that will make great strides this year in making that a reality. So thank you for coming, and looking forward to seeing all of you in 2023.
Thank you, Pauline. Everyone, solidarity, love and solidarity are the key, and hope to see you soon. Hope to see your volunteer sheet and your checks soon to the Battle of Homestead. And thanks for hanging with us tonight for a long, but I hope edifying meeting for all of you. So solidarity and good night.
Here's to all the people who do all the work but never get recognized. You never grab no headlines, your name is never memorized. I'll remember you, put you in my heart, keep you close to me. And I'll sing this song for you, and I'll tell the world the part that you played in our history. To all the thinkers whose thoughts we get from someplace else, the ghostwriters and the singers whose songs were sung for somebody else's wealth. Though you're behind the scene, faithless in the dark, you're lost in sanity. I'll use every means to show the world the mark that you made in our history. And here's to all the people who stand up and speak for what is right, who in the face of fear and intimidation shine like a beacon light. I'll toot your horn for you, Stake your claim in song, I'll unfold your mystery. And I'll give credit where it's due. And I'll show where you belong on the chains of our history. And here's to all the freedom fighters whose love is etched in blood, whose deeds and contributions are buried in every nation.